It's 8 p.m. on the 1st of February 2012. At the Common Grounds coffee shop in Anchorage, Alaska, 18-year-old Samantha Koenig is serving her latest customer a large Americano. Now though, she's raising her hands in terror and backing away from the counter before hastening to turn off all the lights. Once outside, Samantha is able to escape the man in the ski mask who is trying to abduct her. After climbing through the window of the coffee shop moments before and then tying Samantha's hands together before stuffing napkins into her mouth, presumably while somehow keeping hold of the handgun that he'd pointed at Samantha when she served him his Americano, the man had necessarily kept her legs free. On the drive to his home, the kidnapper insists to Samantha that if and when her family pays the ransom that he demands, he will let her go. But he also repeatedly threatens to kill Samantha if she makes a sound or tries to escape again. Samantha's previous escape, you understand, was sadly decidedly short-lived. The kidnapper recaptured her within seconds. Early the following morning, the kidnapper sets off with his girlfriend and his 10-year-old daughter for a cruise of the Caribbean. He's left Samantha's body wrapped in plastic in a cabinet inside his shed. He's not yet done with Samantha, far from it. And Samantha is, by no means, the man's first victim. Now viewer, if I've got you hooked on the story so far, do subscribe, give the video a like, drop a comment when you're ready and donate. Hit the thanks button below, I'll appreciate you. Strict followers of the Mormon faith, the parents of Israel Keyes were anti-government, anti-Western medicine and anti-utilities. Living in abject poverty in the state of Utah, America, they homeschooled their 10 children, of which serial killer in the making, Israel, who was born on January the 7th, 1978, was the second eldest. The one-room log cabin that Keyes' father built for his family of 12 has no electricity and no running water. It may no less be considered an upgrade from the tent in which the family had, for months before this point, been living. After disowning Mormonism, which they did in 1983, the parents had chosen their current location, a secluded area of mountainous land that was all but impossible to reach by car, as the family base. The place was Colville, Washington. The parents wanted their family off-grid, under the radar and out of contact except where church was concerned. Keyes reports that at the age of 14, he became aware of the very unusual nature to some of his tastes.
I've known since I was 14 that there was things that I thought were normal and that were okay that nobody else seemed to think are normal and okay.
He of course wasn't talking about the fact that living cut off from the majority of society in the woods, he and his siblings had had to hunt their food, chop firewood and work on local farms to support the family. He was, rather, referring to his enjoyment of skinning and gutting a deer alive and delighting in the horror expressed by the church friends that he had watching. He was referring also to the fun that he had tying a cat to a tree, shooting it, watching the way it writhed and howled in sheer agony, and feeling confused at the vomiting being done by the boy that he had with him. Whether what I believe was the cat's subsequent rapid death came as a result of that first shot from Keyes or from any further violence from him, I can't say. What's for certain though is that the reaction from the boy who watched Keyes torture the cat is what, more than any other event, awakened Keyes to his fundamental deviancy.
I mean, I actually kind of laughed a little, but then I looked over and the kid who was about my age was throwing up. Like, he was really traumatized, I guess you would say.
Shooting at neighbours' houses with his BB gun, starting fires in the woods, breaking into houses and stealing guns from his neighbour's house. Keyes had committed all of those offences by the age of 14 too. One girl from Keyes' church reports that Keyes made her skin crawl. After Keyes' deer torture, none of the other school-age members of Keyes' church would go anywhere near him either. Years later, Keyes' girlfriend and daughter would report having had not the slightest inkling of Keyes' evil. After his cat torture, you see, Keyes had learned to keep his savagery a secret. Keyes' family was, at this point, with the Christian Israel Covenant Church. Their teachings included the abhorrent nature of racial mixing and the coming of Anglo-Saxon rule over inferior races. These mirrored the teachings of the church that they had attended prior. The Ark also preached a white supremacist ideology. During their time as Ark members, the Keyeses made some interesting friends. In January 1996, a man, his wife and their 8-year-old daughter were suffocated to death in their own home. Their two killers then made off with $50,000 in cash, along with the arsenal of guns and ammunition that they'd come for. The man that they'd murdered, you see, was a gun dealer who one of the killers had robbed once before. His name was William Muller. One of his killers, the one who'd robbed him before, his name was Chevy Kehoe, was a former family friend of none other than the Keys. He'd got to know the Keys during their time as Ark members. I don't know how the soldier that Keys told of his desire to kill him reacted to that disclosure, the man apparently being a friend of Keys. But other than that matter, and other than being fined for driving under the influence, Keys excelled in the military. In his 3 years in the United States Army, he served at Fort Lewis, Fort Hood, and at a station in Egypt. Other than in the case of his DUI, the heavy drinking that he did, which was only ever on weekends, didn't interfere with his performance. Neither did his devil worship. Keys' mother stood by her son when, aged around 17, he shockingly and spontaneously confessed to his parents his long-held atheism. But she couldn't stop his father disowning him. Not only did his father kick him out of the family home, the single-room log cabin with no electricity and no running water, that is, he also ordered his son's younger siblings never to contact him again. Keys' 8 younger siblings actually looked up to Keys. For his part, despite both his cruelty to animals and his numerous other criminal offences, Keys had, apparently, always tried in earnest to please his parents. Letting the teenage girl that he raped when he was about 19 go, though, meant that he had failed to carry out the ritualistic murder required by his satanic beliefs. When, not long after, at 20, he enlisted, he was still kicking himself on a daily basis for that, which begs the question, why didn't he just kill straight after then, instead of signing up to a lifestyle that would make it so much more difficult for him to do so and get away with it? Not that anyone would actually want him to do any killing, of course. State-sponsored murder wasn't his goal. His honourable discharge from the army, which came in mid-2001, couldn't have come fast enough for Keys. He was, by then, starving to kill. The employees of Keys Construction were forever hearing about the cute little things that the daughter of their boss, Israel Keys, had started doing. Keys doted on his daughter. He gave this as his reason for never killing children or people that he knew had children. The people that he actually did kill, though, were unlucky enough to fall victim to someone with military experience, someone who, having done vast amounts of research into various serial killers, carried out his murders in a tactical and careful way so as not to get caught, someone who had hunted all his life and who was, as such, a natural at overpowering and disabling animals, big and small, and someone who, from cats and deer to men and women, loved to cause pain. Keys was somewhat frustrated and with that disappointed when, in June 2011, he murdered Bill Courier. Bill lived in the state of Vermont, which was hundreds of miles away from Keys' own home. Killing well out of town, if you will, was a key tactic in evading detection that Keys had learned years before, you see. There were no pets or children at Bill's home, as Keys had discovered when he scoped the place out, and he had also disconnected the phone line in order to disable any alarm system that the house may have had. These were all further learning points in the study of killing without getting caught that Keys had done. Keys' kill kit, a stash of weapons, ammunition, duct tape, zip ties, and other grisly equipment stored in a large bucket, had, a whole 2 years after Keys hid it near Bill's home, been waiting for him. Keys' murder kits didn't come cheap. Keys funded them with the proceeds of the 20 to 30 burglaries and the numerous bank robberies that he carried out in various states between 2001 and 2012. He paid for numerous holidays in that way too. That said, Keys' construction business was thriving. His growing reputation was, in fact, the reason that he was able to be away from home on a regular basis without arousing any suspicion in his girlfriend. His company's services were sought nationwide. As usual, Keyes had kept his mobile phone switched off and paid his way in cash. He was, as he had learned, leaving no trail of any kind. With Bill's 6-foot height and 220 pounds in weight, Keyes had had to battle to zip tie the 55-year-old's two hands together. Similarly, after getting Bill into the abandoned farmhouse that he'd since driven him to, he found Bill once again fighting him with everything he had. As such, Keyes had had to go without murdering Bill with his bare hands, or at least with a rope. What Keyes loved about strangling people was its relative slowness. It enabled him to savour the moments during which his victims fell unconscious and gradually lost their life. He was soon able to compensate himself for only being able to shoot Bill dead, which he did after first whacking him on the head with a shovel. He ran back out, caught up with Lorraine Curry, Bill's 49-year-old wife, who, having also been kidnapped, had broken out of the car and started running towards the highway, dragged her to the house, hit her, raped her, led her to her husband's corpse and forced her to look at it, and then, in the middle of her agonised cries and screams, put a rope around her neck from behind and throttled her. If, as he later avowed, Keyes had hoped to live to a ripe old age, as it were, and kill as many times as possible in the course of his life, one has to wonder why he made it so easy for the police to catch him after he murdered Samantha Koenig. One should no less be thankful that he did so, of course. 2 weeks after raping, stabbing and strangling Samantha, having returned from his cruise, Keyes found that the shed's freezing temperature had preserved Samantha's body in full. It was later discovered that in the proof of life photo that he got to Samantha's family, together with his $30,000 ransom demand, he had sewn Samantha's eyes open with some fishing line. He had also duct taped her mouth shut and photographed her with a magazine that had been published 4 days before, somehow making it look as if she was actually holding the magazine. Before staging Samantha's body for the photo, Keyes raped it. On the 13th of March 2012, shortly after withdrawing yet another $500 from the $30,000 ransom money that Koenig's family had, in line with the kidnappers' demands, paid into Samantha's account, Keyes was arrested. Police had traced him through CCTV footage of the vehicle that he had used to get to the cash point. Having withdrawn, in the course of the previous 3 weeks or so, $500 sums of the ransom from cash points in various southwestern states, Keyes' last stop had been the state of Texas. It is estimated that Samantha Koenig was the 11th murder victim in Keyes' 11 years of killing, as far as is known, that is, 2001 to 2012. Keyes was a sick and twisted individual. He saw murder as his calling. He died in prison on the 2nd of December 2012 by suicide. If this video has gripped you, I recommend you to watch this one next. I'll meet you there.